Caption Close Moscow, AP. When Russia launched a military campaign in Syria 2 years ago, President Vladimir Putin sought to save his ally from imminent collapse and break Russia's international isolation over a crisis in Ukraine. He achieved that and more, emerging as a key stakeholder in the Middle East who has brokered deals with many of its key players from Iran to Saudi Arabia to Turkey and Israel. It's a regional footprint that comes with a degree of clout that even the Soviet Union, which depended on a handful of Arab allies, couldn't dream of during the Cold War era. And it was accomplished with limited resources and a lot of audacity. Vladimir Putin is determined to restore a greater role for Russia as a global power. And the Middle East is really the main area where Russia has that potential, in part because the Soviet Union played that role in the Soviet period, said William Courtney, an adjunct senior fellow at Rand Corporation. With just a few dozen jets and several thousand troops, Russia waded into Syria's war and stubbornly pressed its campaign despite international scorn and an outcry over resulting civilian casualties. Russia's bold intervention in Syria came as the United States under President Barack Obama steered clear of military engagement and found itself in a series of acrimonious disputes with key allies, including Israel and Saudi Arabia. Under the vastly inconsistent policies of Donald Trump, and in an era of an inward-looking, America First U.S. policy, Russia's maneuvers became all the more poignant on the global stage. Putin's success in the region was on full display Monday, with the confident and upbeat leader moving between Syria, Egypt, and Turkey in a whirlwind tour a week after announcing he will seek re-election for another 6-year term in March. Speaking to Russian troops on the tarmac at Hmeimim Air Base in Syria, Putin declared victory over the Islamic State group and Syrian rebels and announced he had ordered a scaling down of the Russian contingent in Syria. In Egypt, he signed a deal for the construction of a nuclear reactor on the country's Mediterranean coast and sought to strengthen his relationship with a key regional power that has in the past 3 years bought billions of dollars in Russian weapons. And in Turkey, a NATO member, the Russian leader appeared to be on the same page with strongman Recep Tayyip Erdogan on key issues. The Russian president was frequently derided for his penchant for a 19th-century-style realpolitik characterized by cynical political calculus. But Putin's approach paid off in Syria, where he managed to play on the conflicting interests of regional powers and strike deals with various players. When Putin decided to intervene in Syria, President Bashar Assad was on the verge of collapse, his forces losing on all fronts. Within weeks, the Russian military had airlifted supplies needed to set up a base in Assad's heartland and launched an air campaign at the end of September 2015. At first, observers were skeptical about Putin's Syria adventure given Russia's economic troubles and the overwhelming negative odds on the chaotic Syrian battlefield, where the Islamic State group, Al-Qaeda militants and a motley collection of rebels backed by Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey and others were rooting Assad's shrinking military. Many in the West and in Russia predicted Syria would turn into another Afghanistan, a botched Soviet intervention that led to massive losses and ended in a humiliating 1989 withdrawal after nearly a decade of fighting.